Make rocket ship go now. I'm Robert Ogilvy, executive EQ coach, and you have stumbled upon the Leadership Lunchtime live stream. Glad you guys are here. Okay, so why is it critical that that an executive be able to make fast decisions? So this might sound pretty obvious to a lot of you. Hopefully, I'm not blowing anyone's mind when I say that need to make lots of decisions. I'm just going to underscore a bit more why that is, and yeah, this will make sense as we get into it. Okay, so if you're an executive, you have lots of resources to marshal, and this is people underneath you. This is budgets to deal with, and this is how fast or slow, how feasibly, how efficient you're going towards goals. You're developing competitive advantage, or you could think of it as you're preventing risks, right? So there is necessarily something earthy and time bounded about the way you work, right? You're doing this kind of transformational work that turns, you know, people and money into like outputs and strategic impact, right? And so it is necessarily this kind of doing thing, right? Um, the the other thing I would say, and this is a good reminder, that if you think of the spectrum of simple to complex systems, right? And normally that threshold will put, is it a complicated system which might have a lot of pieces, but it's still ultimately a linear input output kind of thing, versus is it a complex system? Is it ongoing and dynamic? And is there not a clear end to it? There's just kind of optimizing and managing it better, right? This is another important thing to think of, because in a complex system, you can't control it, right? And so the way you get good at managing it is very different than the way you would manage a complicated system, right? An example of that is if there's an internal, let's say, ERP system, for all of its bells and whistles, you can set that up to configure it to do whatever the hell you want. The outer complex problems are like, how are we using this, or is this streamlining our operations, or is this like generate us competitive advantage because we're able to respond or able to fulfill some customer need faster, right? That's the more complex market set that's going on. Anyway, but that's just again a recap of that. Why is it important that executives be able to make decisions fast? Because they need to make way more of them. In fact, actually, we know that high performing executives, the really great executives, are making about 4 times the typical amount of decisions, right? And this is on top of the fact that they have good influence and leadership skills, that they're good at strategy and they can spot a good idea, and so that they're. I've seen some of it say that they're good at adapting, but I think really what it is more like is that they're good at looking at downstream effects, and so they can see, oh wait, this current way of working long term isn't sustainable. This other thing, for all the initial short term difficulties and sunk effort, is the much better long term situation. Okay, great. Let's jump ship to this as soon as we're able to, right? Because that is the right long term path, right? And we can split hairs and to various levels kind of break down what kind of strategy and leadership skills are needed. But it's very important to be able to make good decisions, and make a lot of them, right? So the reason why this is important, the people that need to hear this medicine are people often coming from a STEM background, from a heavily academic background. They're not really demanded to make decisions, and so the output of their thinking isn't really clocked so much. That's not really how people are thinking about this, right? Um, Moreover, if you think about kind of the typical triple constraints we think of as projects, which is time, money, and quality of performance roughly, it's like that's always skewed towards give me lots and lots of time, give me some moderate to large amount of money, and I could make a perfect decision. It's like no, no, that is not an efficient way to handle this, sir or madam. No, no, that is not it. And so you could see that people that not just come from that are coming out of very analytic, studious kind of STEM backgrounds, but I would also say certain professions. And top of the list, I would say, is very quality-oriented engineers tend to deal with this. Um, Sometimes when we're talking about upper managers, we know they need to be well-rounded in their skill set, but they still come from a certain career background, right? So we would call that their ascent path. Are they coming from a sales background or a customer service background or a programming background or some niche engineering background? Our decisions depend on the experience we have. Yep. Our decisions depend on and I would even say our amount of expertise. So thank you, Goldsmith Briz, Professor Goldsmith Briz. It's the amount of expertise we have in something, but also it's a bit of personal habit and kind of higher low risk appetite and some other personality factors which are kind of factor into that, right? So let's boil down to that because this is a great point. So we know in terms of the Daniel Kahneman fast and slow thinking, it's like wait a minute. If we're making fast decisions, does that mean that we're only making kind of rough bad decisions? It's like, well, actually, so first of all, I guess the challenge and the pushback is not all your decisions might be these huge high level make or break things. Sometimes they're just not that important, right? And so you can make them and things won't be catastrophic, or you can make them if things change, you can change it back again, right? I will say in this modern digital era, we're locked into decisions much less than we were 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? So that can change. But there's another important point that Professor Briz is bringing up here, and this is about expertise, or let me boil this down to another word, mental models, right? And this actually is the difference between expertise and someone who's moderately experienced and someone who's highly experienced. They have a highly experienced person will have a lot of very advanced mental models. You could think of it as effective ways of orienting to the problem and the situation at hand, which allows them to move swiftly yet effectively, right? Fast is not always worse, right? And in fact, in that sense, the fact that they can so quickly orient to the problem shows how experienced they are, right? And we see this all the time, in that if you're just getting into a field or starting to study or starting to practice something, and you encounter someone that has years and years of experience, you might have a 5-minute, a 20-minute conversation, and you're starting to grapple with some word or some term, and you don't know how to express it, and they basically like take the words right out of your mouth, saying, "Oh, it's like blah blah blah, and it's this problem," right? Because they've encountered it dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of times before, and they already have a lot of great working models, right? That's what you need to become in the areas that you're working in, right? And so this is a great reminder that if we look at performance, it's only in the early to mid-term which more experience boosts your performance. Then that starts to taper off. In the mid and long term, it's better what they would call reflexivity that actually boosts your performance. So what that means is basically you're reflecting critically on lessons learned, what did and didn't work, and feedback from others, and you get basically ever better ROI from that, which again means you have a lot of not just self-awareness, but good critical results awareness of just what the hell is going on, and that helps you learn even faster, which shows at some point the learning part of it is very self-made, right? No one, to be an expert practitioner in something, they can only take you so far, and then you just need to become very practiced, have a lot of mental models. Heuristically, we kind of know this in profession. So the reason that we have professional designations that often require you to have 3,000 or 5,000 contact hours in something, or sometimes more, is because, like, listen, we're not saying that we can cover everything and cover every situation, but geez, if you've been doing this for 5,000 hours, if you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years full time, you probably have enough working mental models that you know what the hell is going on, and that's a good like reliability bet to how well you can perform, right? And particularly back to the people that come from a strong analytic and STEM background, which are used to the measure twice, cut once kind of low velocity of decisions, but hopefully high quality of output. Half the problem is just bucking that behavioral trend. You can make fast decisions, that's okay. And then the far end of that is how do you get better at knowing if you have the right mental model or not. So here's one great question. It's like, can I make a decision right now in 5, 10, 15 minutes, or what one piece of data I need could help me make a better decision or not, and specify that as specifically and clearly as possible, because then you know what you're looking for and what you might be hunting for. Or there's someone in your organization that could help you get that data, right? So the point being in all this is that executives need to move faster in terms of their decision making. Part of it is the behavioral challenge of they can actually make fast decisions, and we can train for that, but also they need very experienced mental models that can orient to all kinds of problems. And that's basically it. Again, we know high-performing executives need this stuff. Anyway, that's probably enough for now. Again, I'm Robert Ogilvie, Executive EQ Coach. I'll talk to you guys later.